Okay, a lot of people have shown this Bill Gates TED Talk several times. It's outdated, but I want to point out a different aspect of this that just occurred to me recently. And please excuse my voice. I've been getting over a cold. So, anyways, I'm going to play this.
We really have to get down to near zero. Can't we just cut it in half or a quarter? And the answer is that until we get near to zero, the temperature will continue to rise. And so that's a big challenge. It's very different than saying, we're a 12-foot high truck trying to get under a 10-foot bridge and we could just sort of squeeze under. This is something that has to get to zero. Now, we put out a lot of carbon dioxide every year, over 20 billion tons. For each American, it's about 20 tons. For people in poor countries, it's less than 1 ton. It's an average about 5 tons for everyone on the planet. And somehow we have to make changes that will bring that down to zero. It's been constantly going up. It's only various economic changes that have even flattened it at all. So we have to go from rapidly rising to falling and falling all the way to zero. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to zero. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy.
Okay, first of all, everybody knows this is a big propaganda piece. Climate change is an agenda to begin with. Global warming is an agenda. CO2 is not the primary factor, even if we were warming and we are in fact cooling at this point. But all that aside, I want to point out people, services, energy. Okay. There's been a lot of talk about, Trump and a lot of things being put out about this energy grid thing, and people should be prepared to take care of themselves and all this and that. Okay. If they want to decrease people, services, and energy to near zero, could they not accomplish all of those things at once, which you couldn't? They can't practically bring the population to zero. They can lower it dramatically, but they couldn't get it to zero. But they could bring energy and services to zero by dropping the grid for a period of time. Okay? and lower the population all at once. So to me, that kind of seems like a 3 out of 4 win-win for them. So anyways, listen to this goes on a little bit.
Let's look at each one of these.
A lot of people have seen this anyways.
How we can get this down to zero. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to zero.
Oh, really?
That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look.
So if energy gets pretty near to zero, that would pretty much solve the equation, right? Yeah, moving on.
Population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, healthcare, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. There we see an increase of about 1.3. The second factor is the services we use. This encompasses everything. Food we eat, clothing, TV, heating. These are very good things. Getting rid of poverty means providing these services to almost everyone on the planet. And it's a great thing for this number to go up. In the rich world, perhaps the top 1 billion, we probably could cut back and use less. But every year, this number on average is going to go up. And so overall, that will more than double the services delivered per person. Here we have a very basic service, do you have lighting in your house to be able to read your homework? And in fact, these kids don't, so they're going out and reading their schoolwork under the street lamps. Now, efficiency, E, the energy for each service. Here, finally, we have some good news. We have something that's not going up. Through various inventions and new ways of doing lighting, through different types of cars.
So I hate listening to this man talk, but you get the point. If we drop energy and services to near zero, causing the population to drop, that's going to achieve their goal for the quote unquote climate change that they've been pushing, and whatever the real purpose for that is. You see, this whole equation here, where'd it go? Let's see if we can look at the equation again. Oh, where'd it go? Right there. You ugly fuck, I don't want to look at you. Anyway, I can't get back to it, but you remember it. So I can see how all of that would relate to this. A lot of people were pointing at the people and the vaccines, and I have no doubt that that's a big part of it. And they're pushing the flu vaccine. This is, the time of year they're pushing the flu vaccine, and everybody's talking about that. And I mean, I never get those. My children never get those. We've never had the flu. I've never had the flu in my life. I've got a cold. I've been sick, but I'm over it. Take some vitamin C. I don't really treat myself or my children with antibiotics unless I absolutely have to. If it's clear that they're not going to be able to beat it within 7 to 10 days and they can't getting better, that's the point where I go for it. Otherwise, I try to avoid it because it builds their immune system on their own. That's the best way to do it. But all that aside, all this stuff up in the air right now about, the grid and SHF, what is it? SHTF. I just messed that up. You know what I'm talking about. If they really wanted to pull something like that, all I can tell is that it would solve a lot of their problems and balance their equation out for whatever they're trying to pull off for their agenda 2030 or whatever, So just keep your eyes open. I have a decent stockpile of non-perishable foods. I have a way to protect myself. I'm not in town. Those are factors to think about. You just try to, do your best with what you have, prep a little bit. That's all I can really tell you. There's lots of videos and things you can look into. I'm not really a prepper channel, but I have taken steps to, as best I can to be prepared to take care of myself because I have a fairly large family, and anyone who is awake would be smart to do the same thing because you don't want to be the one caught, unprepared. And so, Okay, I'm going to bring my last point in with this. This is a new, relatively new update. Probably a lot of you have seen some of this stuff too about Trump and his recent updates about his shutdown for the wall. I'm just going to play a little bit of this and say a few things afterwards, okay?
Threats by President Trump regarding the partial federal government shutdown now in its third week. The president now says he's willing to let the shutdown last for months or even years.
We needed the government open. He resisted. In fact, he said he'd keep the government closed for a very long period of time, months or even years.
Major, go ahead. Sure. Mr. President,
Mr. President, Senator Schumer came out and said that the meeting from his point of view and Speaker Pelosi's was contentious. He also said, you said in the meeting, this is him quoting you, I just want to check, that the shutdown could go on for months or even a year or longer. Did you say that? And
I did.
Is that your assessment of where we are?
Absolutely, I said that. I don't call it a shutdown. I call it doing what you have to do.
President Trump said that may mean keeping the government closed for months or even years.
If we have to stay out for a very long period of time, we're going to do that.
He dug in on demands promised and insisted for the first time that he won't let Congress be the barrier to building a wall.
I may do it, but we can call a national emergency and build it very quickly.
A national emergency would let the president tap Pentagon funds to begin wall construction without congressional approval. The president...
A national emergency means martial law, just to clarify. So that would effectively make Trump the dictator of the United States. And that would give Trump and FEMA, the ability to enact anything they deem necessary in the case of a, quote, state of emergency. And ever since, I know he's been talking about this wall ever since his campaign. I don't play into the Republican-Democrat thing. I think the whole system's rigged. It's obvious, I'm 28 years old. I've never once voted. I've never registered to vote. If there's a way to check on that, y'all can check me on that. I've never even registered to vote. I don't see a point in it. I don't agree with either one. I've never liked anyone that's ran for president. They're all crooked, one way or the other. A lot of people were attracted to Trump because he comes off as a fighter and he comes off as a patriot. And that's what he attempted to do. He played into the Christian idea. He played into the patriot idea. He played into all that and being a rebel, But what some people failed to realize about him is he is still a millionaire, for one. So he's still in that crowd. But also someone that strong and that willing to fight for what he wants. What if what he wants is not good for us? And if he's going to fight for what he wants and he's going to get his way, how's it going to affect everybody else, I'm not for him or against him. I don't know the man. But, the shutdown, I'm not afraid. I take that back. But my concern is, we'll say, that the shutdown could be one of the tipping points that pops our debt bubble. We basically bought ourselves out of the 2008 crash with debt. It's like I told people that have a hard time understanding the financial side of things. I'm no expert, I took some business classes in college and I literally stopped taking classes and dropped college because when I learned how money really worked, it pissed me off. It's just debt. Money is based on debt. And the whole system is based on debt. But we basically paid off a credit card with a credit card in 2008 and created a debt bubble. And all of this shutdown could be the tipping point. That's just problem number one, when people aren't getting paid and they quit doing their job and all of as much as, we say we don't want to rely on the government and we shouldn't have to, we've been put in a place where we're dependent on the government more than we should. And people have, including myself, lived that way and have never learned to live another way in some aspects, because we never had to. But when you're faced with it, it's going to be a sudden, it's going to be a difficult transition into, What if you can't afford your own food? What if the prices go up and up and up? You know, how you have to grow your own food. You have to live on your own. You have to live like they did before people had to buy everything at the grocery store. It's just a lot to think about. But I think all of these things, you know, I think they've been planning a way to do all this. This has all been meant to be whoever's plan it is and however they really intended for it to go down, and whether this is a plan or whether he's, you know, possibly putting a monkey wrench in their plan. I really couldn't tell you, because I cannot fathom how these people think. But it's really time to start thinking about your family, you know, and yourself, and how you're going to look at alternative options. You know, what if you can't go to work? What if you can't depend on your job? What if you can't afford food at the grocery store? What if your food stamps are shut off? What if you don't get your taxes this year? What if you can't pay your mortgage? You know, there was a really good talk of what will happen, or how it will go down when it happens. I'll put the link in the description. It's a really good, there's a guy who did an example of like a crash, and it was very, it wasn't specific of what, it's not a prediction, and it wasn't specific of what made things crash, but it was an example of a family's experience. And it was, what if you're not prepared and what if you are? There's two different stories. I'll put the links because it's really good to listen to, and it puts you in, put things in perspective for you of all of the things you'd have to think about, especially if you have kids and if you have a family, you know, and what the little things you can do that could make a big difference later. If you hear it played out in a story, it puts you in that mindset. I'm a little bit more of this play, and then I'm probably going to cut this off. So.
Also suggested he could build the wall without congressional approval by declaring a national emergency.
The president also said if Democrats in Congress don't give him $5.6 billion for construction of a border wall, he could use emergency powers to divert Pentagon funds for that purpose.
We can call a national emergency because of the security of our country. Absolutely. No, we can do it. I haven't done it. I may do it. I may do it.
Even as
basically threatening them to get his way,
essentially. Paycheck, Mr. Trump's cabinet secretaries, Vice President Pence, and other senior administration officials are due to receive a roughly $10,000 raise starting tomorrow because of a quirk in the law.
I heard you use the word crisis. I heard you use the word emergency.
And another thing that concerns me about the wall, I forgot to say, is, you know, it'll keep immigrants out, but what happens when things get really bad here and keep people in? You know, it's a lot harder to get into Canada than it is to get into Mexico right now. It's an easy way to get out of the country too. It's not only an easy way to get in. Like, what if things get to the point where you'd rather be in Mexico and you can't get there because of the border wall? It's a barrier. A barrier is not only a barrier to keep them out, it's also be a barrier to keep us. And that is really something to think about, you know. You gotta think there could be more than one side to things. But anyway, I'm gonna stick these two clips together that I've made. I'll put the links to that really good story. And just, you know, pray about it. You know, the Lord knows what's going to really happen better than me and better than anyone else. He's got his hand in everything, and he can show you what you need to do and where you need to go, and tell you better than anyone else on YouTube what's best for you and your family. So, God bless y'all.